Hey, it's Sober Without God, and this is Saturday Book Review. And usually on my channel, I'm talking about sobriety or deconstruction, but not on Saturday Book Review. I'm doing a book review of a book that's really old, and no one is going to probably read it. And spoiler alert, if you're not up for a spoiler on a book that was written in 1997, then I suggest you stop right where you are and find another video to watch. Today, I'll be talking about Stuart Woods Dead in the Water, the Stone Barrington novel number 3. And so I reviewed the first two, and just so you'll know, I got on a Stuart Woods Stone Barrington kick. I was in McKay's in Nashville, and they have this gigantic used books and CDs and DVDs and vinyls and toys and all kinds of wonderful stuff you can have. And I love reading. But in McKay's, I was like, I need to read something different. So I went and tried to find some cheap paperbacks. And I was looking for authors that had like stacks and stacks of books. And I found 5 authors. And I just pulled some that were just really cheap off the shelf. And I picked out a Stuart Woods book. And I read like number 8 in the Stone Barrington series. And I read it. I was like, I wasn't bad. And I've just been reading some nonfiction stuff about shame and guilt and all kinds of self-therapeutic stuff. So I was like, I think I'll start back at the beginning of the series. And so that's what I did. I decided to make some videos about it. But we're on number 3. Go back and watch the first one. It's about Stone Barrington, the character. And I do reference this novel right here, Dead in the Water. And in this novel, Stuart, I think, has already written a bunch of books before this. Mr. Woods, who's now deceased, passed us in 2022. But I think he's already made a bunch of money. And, people write about what they know. And I would have to say that Mr. Woods has probably made enough money to buy his own boat because he writes a lot about sailing in this one. In fact, the main character, her name is Allison, and she ends up getting accused of murder in the Canary Islands, I believe. And while she's there, she has to sail the boat. Her husband dies on the boat. She says of natural causes, dumps it. Listen, it doesn't get any stranger than this. While she's there sailing, her overweight husband, she says, dies of a heart attack. While they're at sea, instead of sailing her dead husband's dead body on this yacht to port, she dumps him, buries him at sea overboard. Yeah, that's right. Makes sense, right? Get rid of all the evidence instead of just like saying, hey, cover him up with a tarp so the seagulls can't eat him, and then just go on into port and let him say, hey, see, he died of natural causes. Let the medical examiner at him. Nope, that's not what this lady does. Let's bury him at sea, because that's what would occur to a natural, normal thinking person. Not this lady. And I about gave up on this book because on page 14, Stuart Woods has spent a lot of time on his yacht. I think that his royalties money got him, and good for him. In fact, the main character, her husband that she supposedly killed, he was a writer, and he'd written about 3 or 4 books, and a lot of it was ringing true. Like, he had done all this stuff and lived kind of a similar life anyway. But here's the sentence that about made me stop reading. She's explaining what happened and how her husband died. She says, Paul lowered the mainsail. I got into the boatswain's chair, which is a canvas sling, and Paul winched me to the top of the mast on the main halyard and cleated the line while I hauled the Genoa halyard down to the deck level. No. We're not reading a book with a bunch of nautical sailing terms in it. I'm just not doing it. I don't have the stomach for it. And I'm not reading a book written by a millionaire who sails around on his yacht and is going to tell me about all the nautical terms. I just don't have time for it. I'm not messing around with that stuff. Also, we learned, but it didn't continue like that. There's a few more times when it gets in there and you're like, oh, just tell that it's a boat. It's got a sail and an anchor, and that's all I need to know. Just keep it simple for those of us who will never, ever buy a yacht. It reminds me of the time that I went for a sleep study. And I went for the sleep study, and the guy was like, well, why are you here? And I said, the doctor, who's wearing some really nice shoes and his little suit and his overcoat. And I said, well, because I've been falling asleep and I fall asleep on the way to work. And one time I about ran my car off the road because I was falling asleep. And he said, this is exactly what the doctor said to me. He said, you know, he said, that's happened to me. I about fell asleep driving my Bentley one time. Shut up. Anyway, so Stone Barrington is in the yacht next to her as she pulls up with her without her husband that she's buried at sea. And of course, he's got a girlfriend at home who can't make it. They're supposed to vacation together. She gets snowed in New York City, and he gets all mad at her. And she's hanging out with some extremely good-looking actor, and he assumes they're hooking up, and they are. And so this extremely attractive woman who might have just killed her husband or didn't kill her husband, I guess you have to read the book to find out. And so they end up, and listen, this woman, her husband's been dead less than 3-4 days maybe, and Stone Barrington knows it, and he's going to defend her in court. And what do they end up doing? Sleeping together, of course, because Stone Barrington cannot help himself. He is a dog, and he's a dog in all these books. And in fact, he even says, and I said in the first video, he even reflects on the fact that he really can't help himself sometimes. And they go to bed together, and he knows he's got a girlfriend, and he knows that she's probably on her way there, and he's probably going to have some explaining to do, but he does it anyway. And then he gets a letter from his girlfriend that she's going to spend longer time with this actor and everything. And he gets this letter from her, and he's like, he says, and she didn't sign it love. His girlfriend didn't sign it love so-and-so. And he said, and it said best to you or whatever. He said best, not love, best. He didn't like the sound of that in the least. And he was suddenly very glad he'd effed Allison Manning. He would do it again every chance he had for as long as he could. He's a dog. It's the main character. Anyway, so he goes on and he takes her on as a client. And they tell you all about the messed up world of Canary Island justice and the British legal system, and it drones a little bit here and there, but there's some private detective work that has to get done back in the States, and he has to engage his law firm that he works for, and there's a few times it drags, but there's some interesting, it's more of a legal thriller than it is like a spy or an action thriller this time, and there's a lot of legal work in it, so if you like legal work and you like especially legal work of the Canary Islands, then this book right here, this is going to be your cup of tea. And it does take a couple twists, and it is pretty interesting. And the twists it takes do take you on a road that I got to give it to Stuart Woods. And I wish the guy was alive so I could tell him, but he does take you on for a little bit of a ride at the end of the novels. His novels end abruptly. And if you're not in for some explaining at the end, and you don't, the denouement at the end, if you don't mind the resolution of events being like this long, then you'll be okay with these books too. So this one, I'd give about 3 out of 5 Stone Barringtons, and just watch out for that dog, Stone. Don't let him take up a legal case for you unless you're willing to sleep with them. So next time, I guess I'm going to go ahead and start reading the next one in the series, Swimming to Catalina. And as long as don't have to hoist the mainsail, I guess I'll be okay. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend.